friend. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Emily the Mystic, and as always, I'm super pumped that you are here. I have been getting a lot of questions from my clients specifically about working with pendulums. And so I thought it would be really fun to pull together a full user guide for you on working with a pendulum, how to activate a pendulum, how to clear a pendulum, and what are some of the different ways that we can use pendulums in our day-to-day life. So I hope that you find this video to be helpful and informative. If you're new to my channel, my name is Emily the Mystic, obviously, and I am an Akashic Records channeler. I'm an energy healer. I am a spiritual coach for entrepreneurs and a psychic development teacher. And I use pendulums in my practice a lot. I would say pretty much 5 days a week during my work week. I don't really tend to use them in my spare time on the weekends, but I do use them a lot in my practice. And so because I love working with the pendulum so much, I wanted to teach you some of the tips and tricks that I have found that really work the best for me and to really help you when it comes to your own pendulum journey as well. So I've got a couple of pendulums here, and we're going to dive into all the different specifics and all the things that you need to know when it comes to working with a pendulum. So first of all, working and using a pendulum is actually a process called dowsing. That is the verbiage that we use when it comes to working with a pendulum. So dowsing is the act of using a pendulum to receive answers from your higher self and your guides. And pendulums can be used in different reasons to connect with different things. So when we talk about using a pendulum, let's say a pretty classic example is asking a question and using the pendulum to get a yes or a no answer. How does that work? Like the how? What is sort of the woo-woo science behind how a pendulum works? So there are a couple of different explanations for this, and I want you to feel into what feels like the explanation that is most connected to you and your truth, and I will tell you what my personal opinion is. So some people believe that a pendulum connects you directly to your higher self and your spirit guides. Even you can use a pendulum to connect with specific spirit guides or specific beings within the spirit world that you may wish to work with, and that the spirits themselves are actually moving the pendulum for you on your behalf. So that's one way to think about it. Some others will say that your pendulum moves because the muscles in your hand connect to, of course, your brain, and your subconscious mind already knows the answer to the question that you're seeking. So therefore, your subconscious mind sends a signal to the muscles in your arm and in your hand, and therefore you're getting a movement out of the pendulum. So you already know the answer to the question, and therefore the pendulum is moving based on that answer. For me personally, I think it's a combination of both. I think that your higher self and perhaps specific spirit guides that you may be working with are connecting to you, and you're receiving that information through your channel into your brain. It's stored in the subconscious mind. Because, of course, when we're channeling, we're in those deeper brainwave states. We are in those alpha and even theta brainwave states. And when we're in those deeper brainwave states, we have the ability to tap into information that gets stored in the subconscious mind. And when that's happening, therefore, any messages that you're receiving when they're stored in the brain already knows the answer, and therefore it's sending a signal to the muscles in your body, which are moving the pendulum. So I don't think that spirits, per se, are moving the pendulum for you, but I do think that you're receiving messages from higher consciousness that get translated and stored in the brain, and therefore your body reacts to them by moving the pendulum. So that's personally my belief with how pendulum works. Now, what are some of the reasons why you would want to work with a pendulum? Some spiritual practitioners use them, some don't. I love using a pendulum because it's a very clear indicator of an answer to a question or a very clear indicator of energy, and I'll give you a few examples. So, working with a pendulum is a great way to get a clear yes or no answer to a question. So, sometimes I will use them if I'm really torn between two ideas or two options, or saying yes to something and saying no to something else, and I'm really not 100% sure on what I want to do. A pendulum is a really great tool to use to help you to decide option A or option B, and it's super clear. And it also gives you an answer really quickly. So instead of like sitting there with all of my cards and pulling cards for option A and option B and, going through a whole process, which you can do, another great way to use channeling for yourself. I love working with a pendulum because, again, it gives me that really clear yes or no answer. So it's one way to use them. Another way that you can work with pendulums is to help you discern energy. So if you have somebody else, a volunteer, lie down on a couch or on a bed, you can hover the pendulum above each of their chakra energy centers, and the pendulum will literally indicate for you whether those energy centers are open or closed. And we're going to talk about pendulum movements in a little bit, but just to give you some examples again of how working with a pendulum, how it works. The pendulum responds to the energy in those person's chakra energy centers and moves based on that. Oh, that's another example of how a pendulum moves, is it responds to energy. So let's say that your root chakra is blocked, the pendulum may move counterclockwise to indicate that it's blocked. If it's open, it may move clockwise to indicate that it's open. So that's just another way to use a pendulum, another reason why spiritual practitioners like to work with them. They really are great with discerning energy. So pendulums are just a really great tool to have in your toolbox, whether you choose to use them often like I do, or perhaps just from time to time to really give you a clear answer about something. It's a great thing to learn how to use. And as I always say, I am personally a lifelong learner, so I love to be learning about new things. I love to be exploring new things. And then depending on if I resonate with that information or not, I may choose to continue to work with that modality or that topic further on in my journey, or I may choose to leave it behind and let it go. So once you've figured out if a pendulum is a good tool for you to use, then you can use it forever. But if it's not your thing, or you don't like it and you don't like the way that it works or it feels, you don't have to use it again. But simply trying it can be really, really fun. So first, I want you to get your hands on a pendulum. You may already have one if you're watching this video, but if you don't, a couple of things for you to keep in mind. So you can absolutely make your own pendulum if you are in a pinch. All you have to do is grab a piece of string and a heavy object like a key. A key is great because they usually have a hole at the top and you can just tie your string to it and you've got a pendulum. Now, I would recommend that you make the string about 6 to 8 inches so that it gives enough room for your key or your object to move around. If you don't have a key, you could use any object that has something attached to it that you could tie the string to. So for example, I have some like little crystal pendants that I put on necklace chains. You could absolutely use something like that. So you just need a heavier object and a piece of string or a chain. You could absolutely make your own. If you're into jewelry, go ahead, make your own. For me personally, I love working with crystal pendulums because they're pretty and they just bring a certain type of energy. I love crystals in general. I'm a crystal girl. So I have this beautiful rose quartz pendulum that I got from Etsy a while ago. So this is one that I use a lot. I also have this really beautiful iridescent quartz pendulum that I got from a local spiritual shop here in Philadelphia where I live. So you can get pendulums at any mystical spiritual shop. You can even get them on Amazon. You can get them on Etsy. You can get them online. There are a million practitioners that sell them. And again, you can make one yourself if that's not your vibe, if buying one isn't your vibe. So once you have purchased your pendulum, and side note, if you choose to get a crystal pendulum, you may want to choose a crystal that you really resonate with. I love rose quartz. I love regular clear quartz, and this beautiful angel aura iridescent quartz is super special and mystical. So I love that. But if you have purchased for yourself a crystal pendulum, you're going to want to clear the energy of it before you use it. If you're using a homemade pendulum that you've made with an object yourself, you may also want to clear it. Keys, any objects, jewelry, metal, any sort of object can hold energy. So because of that, we want to let that go, that energy that your object is holding on to go, so that you're getting a clear response when you're working with and using your pendulum, because otherwise your answers may not be 100% clear, or you may not get a clear reading when you're using your pendulum. So how do we clear our pendulum? It's the first thing that we want to do after we buy it, especially if you've bought a pendulum in a shop or on the internet. Every point that in the supply chain process between when the crystal was sourced, when the pendulum was created by either a machine or a human being, to the point where it arrived to the store where you bought it, or it arrived as in a package to your house, that has been touched by so many people that it's holding on to so much energy. So we always want to make sure that we are clearing our pendulums before we use them and after we've used them as well. So once you've gone through the process of clearing and activating your pendulum, which I'm going to teach you how to do next, you are going to use your pendulum. Afterwards, you're going to want to make sure that you clear it between readings, between uses, so that, especially if you're working with clients, so that your pendulum, again, is giving you a clear reading every single time. So how do we do that? There are a few different ways. Of course, we can use our good old Palo Santo or sage smoke to clear our pendulums like you would any crystal. You can just burn your Palo Santo, wave it around your pendulum. That helps a lot. I personally have this beautiful little charging plate here, this little copper charging plate that I got from Goddess Provisions, which is an amazing spiritual subscription box company. I'm not associated or affiliated with them, but I love this product and they probably still sell it in their online shop. You can also buy similar charging plates at spiritual shops. And so every day after I've used my pendulum, I place it on this charging plate and it helps to clear the energy of it. And I place it next to, specifically, a clear quartz crystal. Clear quartz crystal absorbs any energies from the pendulum that are no longer needed. You can also use selenite. Here's some selenite. You can also use selenite. You can place your pendulum on the selenite, and that will do the same thing to help to pull any unwanted energies out of your crystal. So that's super simple. You can just leave it here for a couple hours or overnight to clear it. And if you are in a pinch, you can hold on to the crystal, close your eyes, and be very clear with your intention and ask any energies attached to the pendulum to be cleared immediately and for the pendulum to be restored back to its natural neutral frequency. And that's all you need to do. But I recommend a combination of all of the above. You will just know, you'll have a sense of whether your pendulum is clear or not, and go with that gut feeling because that can be really helpful. There are some websites out there that will encourage you to put your pendulum in a potted plant to clear it the first time that you've used it. So putting it in the soil with a plant will help pull energy out of it as well. You can try that, you can do that. However, when I bought this particular beautiful rose quartz pendulum, it originally had these beautiful little chakra-colored jewels on it. And I did the plant thing, and the jewels got ruined forever. So if you've got a decorative pendulum or a really special pendulum, please don't go putting it in the dirt, especially if it's made out of a water-soluble crystal like a selenite. Selenite is a soft crystal and it's very water soluble. So if I stuck this in the bath or under a stream of running water, it would dissolve in time and it would ruin the crystal. It would ruin its nice shiny coating. So don't do that. Don't go putting your crystals in water. I just don't think it's the best practice. That's my opinion. You have to do what resonates with you. And if you love working with Mother Nature and your plants in the dirt, I'm a plant lady, but I still wouldn't put my pendulums in the dirt. But you got to do what's best for you. So just be very careful. All right, so once your pendulum is cleared, You are ready to go. You're ready to activate it. We only need to activate our pendulum one time. One time. That's all it's needed. We're going to do it together now. And once we've activated our pendulum, then we can use it for different things, for different purposes. Okay, so before we do that, let's talk a little bit about how to hold your pendulum. So what you want to do is you want to make sure that your elbow is on a sturdy surface. If you are trying to use your pendulum over your lap or you're on the couch and you've got nowhere for your elbow to rest, it's going to be really hard for you to learn how to use a pendulum right off the bat. It's not going to feel natural. So you want to put your elbow on a sturdy surface. Once your elbow is on the sturdy surface, you're going to hold the pendulum chain or string about 1.5 inches down from the top of the string itself. Whatever feels comfortable to you. You could absolutely hold it at the very end. I personally like to hold it about 1.5 inches in between my thumb and my pointer finger of my dominant hand, my right hand. So I'm going to hold it in my right hand like this. And I'm just going to let the pendulum just be there naturally hanging down. And that's how you hold a pendulum. So when we're about to do the activation exercise, I want to make sure that you get yourself in a position where you're able to do that. You've got your elbow resting on a sturdy surface. You're sitting on the couch. That could be a lap desk or something else that's sturdy that keeps your elbow supported. And then you're going to have the pendulum hanging out from your thumb and your pointer finger. That's how I do it. And that way your pendulum will be in a stable position for movement so that you can sense the subtle movements that are going to happen. Okay, so before we activate our pendulum with specific answers, meaning yes, no, etc., we are going to activate it to be used for our highest intentions. Okay, so what I want you to do is I want you to hold the pendulum in your hand first, like this. You can just hold it in your fist. I'm going to have you put your other hand over your heart, and I'm going to have you repeat the following words after me as you direct the energy of this intention to your pendulum. Okay, here we go. I am activating this pendulum to deliver only the messages of the highest truth, light, and love, and that are in alignment with my greatest good and the greatest good of all involved. So be it, so be it, so be it, and so it is. And now your pendulum has been activated to that intention so that it will deliver you messages of the highest good. Easy, done. If you want to set any other intentions over your pendulum, you can absolutely do that yourself with any other intentions that you have. So you could write your own intention if you wanted to, but that one will be perfect enough for what you need to use it for the simple things. Okay, so now we want to determine answers with our pendulum. All right, so we are going to figure out what yes or no means with our pendulum. Okay, so what we want to do is you're going to hold your pendulum. Now I'm going to hold mine a little bit closer just for the purpose of you being able to see it on the video. But for you, you're going to want to hold it a little bit down to the end of the string to give it room to move. So I'm going to hold it here for you so you can see this. And when you're holding your pendulum, I just want you to take a moment to take a couple of deep breaths and just to really relax your mind. So breathing in and out, in and out, in and out. Excellent. Now that your mind is a little bit more relaxed, I want you to say out loud, pendulum, show me a yes answer. And I want you to wait and watch your pendulum as it begins to move and see what happens. So give yourself a moment to do that. And once your pendulum has begun to move in a significant direction, it may be small at first. It will get larger the more comfortable you get with it. Once you've gotten a specific movement, I want you to say out loud, "Thank you, pendulum. Message received." Good. So some examples for how your pendulum could be moving. It could be moving left to right like mine does. It could be moving forwards and back. It could be moving in a clockwise circle. It could be moving in a counterclockwise circle. And regardless, or any combination or anything else, it could even be moving diagonally. Your pendulum, your movements are going to be unique to you. And I'm going to show you something in a moment, but we're going to set and attune our pendulum to know next, and then I'll tell you something. Okay, so next you're going to hold your pendulum again, and you're going to say, once your pendulum has stopped swinging and it's very still, "Pendulum, show me a no answer," and allow the pendulum to move. Good. And once you've gotten a clear movement, you're going to say, "Thank you, pendulum. Message received." Awesome. Perfect. So my yes answer is back and forth, and my no is up and down. What's interesting about that is if we were to take a look at the human body, when we nod our head yes, we do it like this, and when we shake our head no, we do it like this, right? So that's the opposite of the way that my pendulum delivers answers. It's always been that way for me, and I don't question it or distrust that. So if your pendulum is making movements that don't make sense or logical sense, go with it. Don't question it. Just go with however your pendulum moves. Those are the movements that are right for you. Now, two other things that you can set your pendulum to. I don't use these in my practice, but these may be helpful for you. So I'm going to tell you how to do them, and then you can decide whether or not you want to use them. You can ask your pendulum to show you rephrase the question. So show you a movement to rephrase the question. And you can ask the pendulum to show you a maybe answer. So what is a maybe answer? So I have two movements for that, but that never really seems to come through for me a lot. I usually just use yes or no, simple. But you can use those other two options, rephrase the question, which means that your question was not clear enough and you need to rephrase it. And the maybe is if you are asking a question that is predictive, meaning you're asking about a future potential thing, future potential possibility that the future has not been decided yet, and so you're going to get a maybe answer. So those two are other options that you can program your pendulum to do. Again, I don't use them that often, so I'm not going to encourage you to do that, but if that helps you, those are other options that you can use as well. Finally, you can ask the pendulum to show you what movement it will make when a chakra is open. And once it's shown you that answer, you can say, "Thank you, pendulum, message received." And pendulum, show me when a chakra is blocked. And you can say, "Thank you, pendulum, message received." So for me, open is clockwise, blocked is counterclockwise, which is pretty simple, and that makes a lot of sense. Now, if you don't really do energy work, you don't work with the chakras, you don't work with clients, you may not even need to use that, but I just wanted to teach that to you in case you were curious and wanted to give it a try. Now, we're going to test our pendulum out to give it a feel for how it is to work with it. So what I want you to do is you're going to hold your pendulum again in the natural way that you were to activate your yes or no answers and bring your pendulum to a complete stopping point. And then you're going to ask, pendulum, is my name Emily Logan Lewis? That's my full name. And I'm going to get a yes. So I want you to ask your pendulum, pendulum, is my name blank? Insert your name and see if you get a clear yes. Give that a try. And then you're going to ask, pendulum, do I live in, insert your city. So for me, pendulum, do I live in Philadelphia? Yes, I do. So I'm getting a clear yes. I want you to do the same with your city. Pendulum, do I live in blank city or town? All right, so that's testing your yes. And now let's test your no. So I want you to ask, pendulum, is my name, and insert a totally different name. So I'm going to say, pendulum, is my name John Smith? Okay, I'm getting a very clear no. So you could use John Smith, or you could use my name or any other name. And then you're going to test your no again with the city question. So pendulum, do I live in? Insert a city that you do not live in. So pendulum, do I live in New York City? No. Okay, cool. So that is just a really clear way to test your pendulum. When you're first getting started, you may want to use that as your opener. Like, let's say you're sitting down to use your pendulum. It's been a couple days. You're not feeling super sure if it works for you yet. You may want to use those questions to test it first, just to make you feel really comfortable with it before you move forward. Eventually, you'll get to a point where you don't need to do that. But that's just a really helpful way to get clear on the responses and make sure that they are clear before you move forward. Now, if the responses you're getting don't make sense, perhaps your pendulum is swinging in the wrong direction, you've gotten yourself all confused, I want you to clear your pendulum for a good 24 hours. So put it with a selenite, give it a sage, leave it for 24 hours, set the intention to clear the energy, and then redo the exercise we did together where we activated it to the yes or no answers, and try again and make sure that you're really clear on the yes versus the no. The movements can be so subtle. So make sure you really get it before you move forward, and that should do the trick. That should do the trick. If it's still not working for you, it may not be the right pendulum for you. So you may need to, if you're working with a crystal pendulum and it's just not panning out, you may want to get a more simple pendulum. Like another great one is a clear acetate pendulum, which is simply a pendulum that has a clear plastic ball on the end. They are, clear acetate does not absorb energy, so they are a really great option if you don't want to have to clear your pendulum all the time. So you can Google that. I'm sure you can find one. Or you could make yourself one or do something different than a crystal, for example, in order to make sure that it really works for you. If you are a person who questions things constantly and you have trust issues, pendulums may not be the most helpful tool for you because you may subconsciously be questioning your pendulum and its intentions all of the time. And if that's the case, you may want to do a little shadow work and a little inner work around your trust issues before you really commit to using a pendulum. Because at the end of the day, if you're not trusting your pendulum, you're not trusting yourself, right? And you're not trusting the universe and your guides. And so taking a look at where that is coming from could be really helpful with troubleshooting your pendulum before you start using it all of the time and before you move forward. Now, I have a couple of recommendations for you with using your pendulum. So number one, being very clear with the questions that you are asking when you work with your pendulum. Being really specific and clear. And I want you to avoid using the word should before the question that you ask, because should is a very subjective word. So should, my answer to a question that begins with should, may be different than your answer to a question that begins with should. For example, should I bring an umbrella with me today? Maybe you don't want to carry it with you. Maybe it's going to rain, maybe it's not. Another really clear way to rephrase that would be, is it in my highest good to bring an umbrella with me today? It's so much clearer, right? And it sets an intention of what you want to receive. So, another example of that, let's say that you are in the job market, you're applying for jobs, you have a job opportunity that comes your way. Instead of asking, should I take this job opportunity? Not super clear, you would want to ask, is it in my highest alignment to take this job opportunity? Yes or no? Is it in my highest path or my highest alignment to move to this place, to travel to this place, to make this decision? Being very clear with how you phrase your question is going to get you a better result than if you're asking unclear questions. So take a moment and really get clear on your question before you ask your pendulum anything. Will really serve you a lot in the long run and in life in general. So avoid using the word should. And again, pendulums are great for yes or no questions. If you have an open-ended question, meaning what do I need to know about this job opportunity, that's where you want to direct that to your oracle cards, your tarot cards, automatic writing, or some other channeling practice that's going to give you guidance and information. Pendulums aren't really designed for that. They're designed for clear yes or no answers. So making sure that you're asking a question that's like a yes or no, or an option A or an option B question could be really helpful for you as well. Another way that you can use a pendulum is to ask questions based on a scale of 1 to 10. So this can be really great if you're choosing in between two options. So let's say you've got two jobs that have popped up for you and you want to use your pendulum to figure out which one is the right job. So you're going to ask the pendulum, on a scale of 1 to 10, how in alignment is this job opportunity? And then you're going to ask, is it a 1 out of 10? And see if your pendulum swings yes or no. Is it a 2 out of 10? Is it a 3 out of 10? And you're going to keep going until you get an answer. And then same thing with your second job option. Is the second job option, is it a 1 out of 10, a 2 out of 10, a 3 out of 10, etc.? So you can ask those questions on a scale of 1 to 10. Like, how much in alignment is this opportunity for me? What is the likelihood that this will happen? What, on a scale of 1 to 10, is this the best choice for me? Like, being really clear with your questions with using a scale can be really great as well. So that's a little bit about asking your pendulum questions. So don't be afraid to get creative with it. And again, start using your pendulum with small decisions before you use it for the big things, especially if you're a beginner and you're getting really used to using it. You don't want to use a pendulum to ask, like, should I break up with my boyfriend or not? If you're just starting to use it, start with small things like, at Starbucks, is it in my highest alignment to order coffee A or coffee B? Small decision, easy. Or I'm watching Netflix tonight. Is it going to be more fun for me to watch this show or that show? Or I want to travel this weekend. Will I have more fun if I go here or here? So things like that are small and simple, that will help you really get comfortable with the pendulum versus complicated questions or questions that have a lot of weight to them. You want to use those, be with those later on. Pendulums, again, they're great for the easy things. They're quick, they help us make quick decisions. So don't ask anything too complicated or something that you're not going to fully trust the answer as well, especially if we have trust issues like we were talking about earlier. Now, the last thing that I want to teach you with the pendulum is how to clear your energy with a pendulum. I love this because if you are looking for a new energy clearing practice, maybe you work with a lot of people, you're around a lot of energy, or maybe you're just a sensitive empath and you're tired of feeling like you've got a ton of energy in your field, here's what you can do. So you're going to have your pendulum, you're going to hold it at the top just like you would, and you're going to ask the pendulum to clear, you're going to set the intention and ask your pendulum to cleanse and clear your energy field for you and to remove any energies that are not your own. And your pendulum is going to start to swing in a very large clockwise direction. Your pendulum is going to, as it moves in this large clockwise direction, it's going to cleanse and clear your energy field. And you may feel something shifting in your body. You may feel tingling. You may feel a sense of spaciousness. You may feel more open. You may feel a release. That's how you know that it's working. When you first start with this, you may not feel anything at all, but with time, you'll definitely feel a shift. And then when it's done, for me, my pendulum will swing yes to let me know that it's done. So for you, it may just stop moving altogether, or it may change movement or change direction, and that's how you know that it's done. And by the way, you can also do this with protecting your energy. So every day I will go in, I will ask it to cleanse my energy, and then next I will ask it to protect my energy. And it's going to move again in that clockwise circle with my intention of protecting my energy from the people that come into my field during the course of the day. And it's going to form an energetic bubble around me. Your higher self is doing this for you on your behalf, by the way. And then when it's done, it's going to give you a clear indicator that it's done. So we're almost there. There we go. Getting a clear yes. So it's done. Yay. And you're going to feel so much better afterwards. And how easy was that? How fun was that? So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope that this helped you. If you have any pendulum questions, feel free to leave them below. I'll do my best to answer them. If this video resonated with you and really helped you with your pendulum, please like this video and also subscribe to my channel if you are new here for more content like this. And if you are diving into getting to know your intuition and wanting to learn more tips and tricks like this, I have a whole course of information on this that includes some of the pendulum information we've learned today. That is called my Intuition Activation Academy. It's an 8-week self-paced online course that is chock full of information about discovering your intuition, your psychic gifts, channeling, working with your spirit guide team, all of the good stuff. It's one of my favorite things I've ever created. You can hop in right now and you get access to the full course and you can dive into it whenever you want. You will learn so much about yourself, your gifts, and your spirit guides, and pendulums too. It's part of the process. So hopefully I'll see you in the academy. Otherwise, enjoy your day, and I'll see you next week.